pregnant stepmom went from loving me to suddenly hating me. Then my dad said I must be doing something wrong because no one hates a kid for no reason, so I decided to run away. This is a throwaway account because my cousin follows my main I posted this on or relationship advice, but it got taken down because you need to ask an actual question or something stupid like that. So I'm putting it here. This happened in early 2020 during the first co-lockdowns. So it's been almost 2 years now, but it got brought up again recently and I've been thinking about it a lot. So I thought I'd ask for some outside opinions. So I-17S used to have a really great relationship with my stepmother, Tammy. I genuinely saw her as a mother figure in my life for years, and I was so excited when she found out she was pregnant back in late 2019. Some background: my parents divorced when I was 8 and my dad married Tammy. When I was 10, it was really hard at first because I was still hoping my parents would get back together. I know, typical kid fantasy, but Tammy was always super patient with me. We used to do all kinds of stuff together: shopping, cooking, watching movies. She even taught me how to drive, which my real mom didn't have time for because of her demanding job as a surgeon. Tammy worked as an elementary school teacher and always had this natural way with kids. She'd help me with my homework and we'd have these little inside jokes that annoyed my dad because he never understood them. My mom is great too, don't get me wrong. She's just always been super busy with her career. Even before Co, she loves me a lot, but she's not the type to bake cookies or do crafts. She's more the type to help me with college applications and have serious talks about my future. Both approaches have their merits, and I was actually lucky to have 3 parents who cared about me anyway. Everything changed in March 2020 when the lockdown started, and I had to stay with my dad and Tammy earlier than planned. Usually I split my time between households, 1 week with mom, 1 week with dad, but when Co hit, my mom was suddenly working 80+ hour weeks at the hospital. She was worried about exposing me to the virus, so we agreed I'd stay at dad's until things calmed down. At the time, we thought it was just going to be for a couple weeks max. Nobody knew how long that whole mess was going to last. At first, everything was normal, even kind of fun in a weird way. Schools closed, so Tammy was home too. Dad was working from home in his office for most of the day, but would join us for meals and movie nights. Tammy and I still got along great. We baked cookies, tried new recipes, binged Tiger King like everyone else, and even started a small vegetable garden in their backyard. She seemed genuinely happy about her pregnancy. She was about 3 months along when lockdown started and would let me feel her barely their bump sometimes. But then something changed when Tammy was about 4 months pregnant. It wasn't gradual. It was like someone flipped a switch. She started snapping at me for literally no reason. Things that she didn't care about before suddenly bothered her so much. Like she never cared if I left a cup in the living room before, but suddenly it was this massive issue that I was making the house filthy. One time I put my shoes next to the door instead of on the rack, and she acted like I'd murdered someone. How many times do I have to tell you about your damn shoes? She yelled and threw them outside on the porch. Keep in mind, this was the woman who used to joke about my messy room and say creative people are never tidy. Now I wasn't a messy or loud person. My mom raised me to clean up after myself and be respectful. I did everything I was asked without talking back and followed all the rules. My friends' parents always commented on how polite I was compared to their own kids. My teachers would use me as an example of good behavior in elementary school. Embarrassing but true. But no matter what I did, Tammy got angry at me. It came to a point where she couldn't stand being in the same room as me. I'd walk into the kitchen to get some water, and she'd huff loudly and leave. I'd be watching TV, and she'd come in, see me, and immediately turn around and walk out. Sometimes she'd mutter things under her breath that I couldn't quite hear, but I knew they were about me. I remember I ended up staying in my room most of the time. I only left to do chores or get something from the kitchen. I'd wait until I heard them in their bedroom or knew they were busy before I'd sneak out to grab food. I even started keeping snacks and water bottles in my room so I wouldn't have to go out as much. My daily routine became so restricted. I'd wake up around 9 a.m. later than usual because what was the point of getting up early then? Wait in my room until I heard them having breakfast. After they were done, I'd quickly grab something to eat and take it back to my room. I'd spend the day doing online schoolwork, watching Netflix on my laptop, or texting friends. Most days I didn't even change out of my pajamas because why bother? No one was seeing me anyway. Once a day, usually when Tammy was napping, I'd quickly clean whatever areas of the house were my responsibility. I became paranoid about leaving any trace that I existed. I'd wipe down the shower after using it, make sure no hairs were left in the drain, no toothpaste in the sink. I'd clean the microwave if I used it, wipe down any counters I touched, even with me basically becoming a ghost in the house. She still got mad. Like one day she came into my room angry and started yelling that my room was so, I was smelly. It was making her sick. I looked around confused because I had literally cleaned it that morning. I had vacuumed, changed. My sheets opened the window for fresh air. Everything. I pointed out that the only mess in the room was a half bag of chips on my desk, which caused her to burst out crying. "You don't understand how hard this is for me," she sobbed and ran out of the room. My dad came in a few minutes later looking stressed as always. Dad babied her, then made excuses saying she was struggling over lockdown, pregnancy, and not being able to see her. Family pregnancy is really hard on a woman's body, he explained to me for the 100th time as if I was too stupid to understand basic biology. The hormones make her sensitive to smells. Her emotions are all over the place, and she's scared about the baby with this virus going around. I get that pregnancy hormones are a thing, but this felt different. It felt personal, like she suddenly hated me. I asked my dad if I'd done something wrong, if there was something specific I could fix or change. But he just said I needed to be more understanding and give her space. But how much more space could I give? I was already barely existing in the house. My mental health got extremely bad during this time. I felt like I was a piece of trash that at any day my dad was going to throw away, and I was always scared my mom would get sick from working at the hospital during COVID. My hair started falling out in clumps. I'd find it all over my pillow in the morning or clogging the shower drain. I lost like 15 lbs because I was too anxious to eat properly. I couldn't sleep, had nightmares when I did sleep, and was basically just existing. Some days I'd just stare at the wall for hours. It's hard to explain how empty I felt. I tried talking to my dad about it a few times. I'd wait until Tammy was asleep and ask if we could talk. He'd always say, "Now is not a good time," or "Let's discuss it later." But later never came. Once I tried to bring it up during dinner. Stupid, I know, and Tammy stormed out of the room. Dad gave me this disappointed look like I ruined everything and followed her to comfort her. I texted my mom about it, but she was working 16-hour shifts, and when she'd call, she sounded so exhausted that I didn't want to add more stress to her life when she asked me if everything was okay. And I almost broke down and told her. But then she mentioned how a 30-year-old patient had died that day, and I felt so selfish for even thinking about my problems. I tried talking to friends on FaceTime, but it wasn't the same as in person, and everyone was dealing with their own co-issues. My best friend Zoe was the only one who really understood how bad things were. She'd let me vent for hours and never made me feel like I was exaggerating. I think without those calls, I might have completely fallen apart. Then came the breaking point. It was a Saturday in late July, so I'd been living like this for about 4 months. I was sitting at the kitchen table around 10 a.m. Everyone had already had breakfast, and I thought the coast was clear. I was just reading a story on my phone, waiting for my cereal to go soggy. I hate crunchy cereal. I know, it's weird. It was this rare moment where I felt almost normal, like I could exist. In the house outside my bedroom, Tammy came in, saw me there, and huffed loudly. She was about 7 months pregnant at this point and always had her hand on her stomach like she was protecting the baby from me or something. She started cleaning the kitchen, which was already spotless because I had cleaned it earlier. She was slamming cabinet doors and muttering under her breath about some people and living in filth. Then she walked over to me, grabbed my bowl of cereal, and threw the whole thing in the trash, like not just dumped the cereal out. She threw the actual ceramic bowl in the bin. It was one of the nice ones, too, not some plastic thing I just flipped. After months of walking on eggshells and being treated like garbage in my own dad's house, something in me snapped. I started yelling at her, asking what her problem was with me. I called her an abusive, and some other things I probably shouldn't repeat. Said she was trying to make me miserable, that she was trying to get rid of me, and that I was sick of her treating me like when I'd done nothing wrong. I asked her what had changed, why she suddenly hated me when we used to be so close. My dad came running in and got between us. Tammy was crying again and had her arms wrapped around her stomach, as if I was somehow threatening the baby. By yelling, she demanded that I leave the house, that I was never allowed near her or her baby. She's unstable, she told my dad through her tears. I don't feel safe with her here. Dad walked me to my room, his face red with anger, and then he said something that completely ruined our relationship forever. He told me that I must be doing something to Tammy because no one hates a kid for no reason, and if I kept stressing her out, I'd have to move out, he said. Tammy and the baby were his priority now, and if I couldn't behave appropriately, I couldn't stay there. He even suggested that maybe I was jealous of the baby and acting out because of it, which was ridiculous. I've tried to be patient, he said, but you need to grow up and think about someone other than yourself for once. This from the man who had seen me shrinking away and becoming more withdrawn every day, but never once asked if I was okay. After he left, I sat on my bed for about an hour, just crying. Then I made a social media post asking if anyone had a place I could stay even though it's co-times and explained the situation in detail. I wrote about how Tammy had changed, how my dad had taken her side, and how I couldn't stay there anymore. I didn't want to worry my mom at the hospital, so I thought finding somewhere temporary would be best. I packed a bag with clothes, my laptop chargers, and a few important things like my childhood teddy bear and the necklace my mom gave me for my 16th birthday. I didn't take much because I thought maybe I'd be back in a few days once everyone calmed down. Then I climbed out my bedroom window and just left. It was around 3:00 p.m. on a hot July day. I remember walking down the street thinking how weird it was that everything looked so normal when my whole life had just imploded after well, I did get a lot of messages of people asking me about the situation and agreeing to take me in for a few days. But I decided to text Zoe asking if I could come over, and she immediately said yes. After about 30 minutes, my phone started blowing up with calls and texts from my dad and Tammy, but I just turned it off. I didn't want to talk to them. I knew if I heard my dad's voice, I'd either start crying again or say something I couldn't take back. I got to Zoe's house around 4:00 p.m. Her parents had always been nice to me, and when I briefly explained what happened, her mom hugged me and said I could stay as long as I needed. They set up an air mattress in Zoe's room, and her mom made my favorite meal for dinner. They didn't push me to talk about it, which I appreciated. I asked to use Zoe's phone and texted my mom to let her know what happened and that I was safe. She didn't call for about 7 hours because she was in surgery for most of the day. When she finally called, she was upset but understanding. She wasn't angry at me, which was a relief. She said my aunt Kelly would pick me up the next day and I could stay with her until they figured something out. I spent that night at Zoe's and we stayed up late talking. It felt so good to just be somewhere I was welcome, where nobody was walking on eggshells or giving me dirty looks. Almost felt guilty for how relieved I was to be out of that house. The next morning, my mom called again and talked to Zoe's parents to thank them. Then she spoke to me and said she'd talked to my dad. Apparently, he and Tammy had been frantic. They'd called the police, who didn't take it seriously since I was 17, and had posted on social media that I was safe, and they'd gone door to door to family and friends' houses looking for me. My mom told my father I was okay and that I'd be staying with my aunt for 2 weeks until she could arrange to come home or figure something else out. She said he was relieved I was safe, but still angry about how I'd left. And what I'd said to Tammy, what my mom didn't tell me until later, was that after I made that social media post where I explained everything, a lot of people had reached out to my dad and Tammy, my former teachers, parents of friends, neighbors, all asking what was going on and why I felt the need to run away. Publicly, they played it off as teenage drama, but privately, they were getting a lot of questions they couldn't answer. Without looking bad, my grandparents, dad's parents, were especially upset. They'd always been protective of me, and when they heard what happened, they drove 3 hours to confront my dad in person. According to my aunt, there was a huge argument with my grandfather, telling my dad he'd failed as a father. They still don't talk to him to this day over how he treated me, which makes family events super awkward. I stayed with my Aunt Kelly for those 2 weeks. She's my mom's sister and had always been the cool aunt who let me stay up late and watch R-rated movies when I was younger. She lived about 30 minutes from my dad's house in a small apartment, so it was a bit cramped, but she made it work. She turned her office into a makeshift bedroom for me and was really supportive. Then nothing really happened for days after that. It was weird. I kept expecting some big confrontation or for my dad to show up demanding I come home, but there was just silence. Eventually, my aunt drove to my dad's house with me, waiting in the car, and packed up more of my stuff. She said Dad and Tammy were civil but distant. A couple days later, my aunt went back alone and packed up my entire room because I refused to go back into that house. She brought back all my clothes, books, posters, everything that would fit in her car. Some furniture and bigger items had to be left behind, but I didn't care. I just wanted my personal stuff. My mom arranged to take a 2-week leave from the hospital, which was nearly impossible during CO, but somehow she managed it. She rented a small 2-bedroom apartment near her work, so I could stay with her when she went back. It wasn't ideal. She was still working long hours, but it was better than being with Dad and Tammy. Over the next few months, my dad tried calling a few times, but I never answered. He sent some texts apologizing, saying he missed me. That Tammy was doing better, but I just couldn't bring myself to respond. The wound was too fresh, and his words kept echoing in my head. No one hates a kid for no reason. What kind of father says that? I've not spoken to my father since then and now or met my half-brother, who's almost 3. I've seen pictures of him on social media, We have mutual family friends, and he looks a lot like me when I was little, which is weird to see. Sometimes I wonder what he's been told about me. If anything, does he know he has a big sister Tammy, and dad still try to fix our relationship? They send birthday and Christmas cards, occasional texts. Last year, they sent me an article about something called prenatal depression or something like that. Apparently, they found out from some doctor that sometimes pregnant women get a hatred against people or pets for no reason. It's some hormone thing. I don't know if that's true or just an excuse, but either way, the damage is done. You can't treat someone like garbage for months and expect a Wikipedia article to make it all better. I'm turning 18 in 3 weeks, and we're planning a small birthday party at my mom's place. My cousin's girlfriend, Sarah, asked me yesterday about inviting my dad. Don't you think it's time to mend fences, she said. He's still your father. When I told her absolutely not, she asked why, and I explained the whole story. I probably gave more details than I should have, but I wanted her to understand why. This wasn't just some petty teenage grudge. She told me that, well, what they did was wrong. What I did was an thing too, because I made them worry, stress, and go to multiple people's houses during a pandemic. She said I put a pregnant woman who was having mental health issues at risk by my whole stunt, and that I should have handled it more maturely. You were almost an adult. She said you could have called your mom or an Uber or something instead of disappearing and making a dramatic social media post. She also pointed out that I've never even tried to meet my brother, and that's not fair to him now. I'm second-guessing everything. Maybe I was the update one. Hi guys, I honestly thought I'd never give an update, but here I am. This is like a month after my original post, and a lot has happened. Well, not a lot, but enough. First, I can't believe how many responses I got. I honestly expected maybe a handful of comments, but this kind of blew up. I read all the comments and want to thank everyone for the support and advice. It really helped me gain some perspective on the whole situation, and to the people who shared similar experiences. It's weirdly comforting to know I'm not alone, even though I wouldn't wish this kind of family drama on anyone. I'm going to call my cousin's girlfriend Sarah and my cousin Paul, since that's easier than saying my cousin's girlfriend and my cousin every time. So I mentioned in a comment I ended up uninviting Sarah for my party after what she said. I was pretty upset that she tried to make me feel bad for protecting myself in a bad situation. My mom agreed that Sarah was way out of line and said we should just have family at the party anyway. Yesterday, Paul came over to talk to me about it. He seemed really uncomfortable, kept fidgeting with his phone, and couldn't make eye contact, he told me. Sarah had issues in the past with her younger siblings. It was apparently really bad, like her siblings lived with their mom full-time and she lived with her dad. They had some huge falling out. When Sarah was in high school, he was vague about the details. Long story short, Sarah was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in college and went to therapy. He said even though she's apologized to her siblings multiple times, they still won't have anything to do with her, which breaks her heart. Paul said Sarah told him that when I told her what happened with Tammy, it triggered her because it reminded her of her situation with her siblings. I guess she saw herself in me, and Tammy and herself, I don't know, it was confusing. I didn't mention this in my other post because it was really irrelevant to what I was asking, but after our initial conversation, Sarah texted me about letting go of the hate, sent links to sites about family members with mental health issues, numbers of family therapists, even subreddit links. On here, it was a lot and felt really pushy, like she was trying to fix my family when she barely knows us. I didn't respond to any of it, which I think made her double down even harder, Paul told me. Sarah wanted to meet up to clear the air and apologize in person. I felt bad for her after hearing about her siblings, so I said okay, maybe I was being too harsh. Sarah texted about half an hour later about collecting me because she wanted to drive to a new restaurant that newly opened in the next town over as her pre-birthday treat to me. That seemed nice, and I thought maybe I had misjudged her, but something felt off, so I mentioned it to my mom. She thought it was weird that Sarah wanted to drive to a restaurant in the next town when there are plenty of places nearby, and why did she insist on driving me? I could have met her there. Turns out our suspicions were right. We knew what she was planning to do, but Tammy of all people ruined it for her by calling my mom to tell her about Sarah's plans to help us make up. Apparently, Sarah had messaged Tammy about it, which I'll get to in a minute. While all this was happening, I decided to write my dad a letter 2 days ago. As a lot of you suggested, Ed, I put everything in there, how his actions made me feel abandoned and betrayed. I told him how his actions affected me to this day, how I still sometimes feel like I need to make myself invisible in other people's homes. I told him I wanted a relationship with my brother, but I wasn't sure I'd ever want one with him. I told him to leave me alone because his attempts to fix things were only pushing me away even more, and if I ever decided I wanted to talk to him, it would be on my terms. With my mom present, the letter ended up being 5 pages long, and you guys were right, it did make me feel better to get it all out. I cried while writing parts of it, but it was like releasing a poison that had been inside me for years. My mom dropped it off that day and said Dad seemed surprised but took it without saying much. Dad asked to meet my mom. A day later, they talked for about an hour, mostly about me. Mom said he cried, which is something I've only seen him do twice. In my life, they talked about me possibly meeting my brother, and my dad said he wants to buy me a car. No strings attached. Apparently, Tammy and Dad also asked if it would be okay to give me money to get myself something for my birthday. You guys are going to hate me for this, but I'm taking the car and $500. If he wants to give me more, he can, because college supplies and moving into a dorm is expensive. I know it might seem like I'm using him for money, but honestly, I feel like it's the least he can do after everything. Maybe that makes me petty or materialistic, but I don't care. It doesn't mean I forgive him. It just means I'm practical. My mom said, it's up to me and she won't judge either. Way back to Sarah, she basically contacted Tammy via Facebook. Tammy sent my mom the screenshots telling her everything I said, then asking Tammy for her side because Sarah didn't believe me. Like she actually told Tammy I was making things up or exaggerating. Who does that? To Tammy's credit, she told the truth and took full accountability. She admitted to treating me horribly during her pregnancy, said she was on medication now for what was diagnosed as depression with anxiety, and that she regretted how things happened. It was Sarah who kept trying to make out like Tammy was the victim, saying things like, it must have been so hard for you dealing with a teenager while pregnant. During a pandemic, Sarah told Tammy about her own past and said she'd try to mend our relationship because she understood both sides. Tammy actually told her that she didn't want her to do that it wasn't Sarah's place, and that she respected my decision to keep my distance. The last message was Sarah telling Tammy the location and time we'd be at the restaurant. She even said she'd drive me so I couldn't leave, even though I could have just asked a waitress for help or called my mom or Uber. It was so manipulative and creepy. My mom posted the screenshots into the family group chat and called Sarah a bunch of names. She told her if she ever came near me again, she'd regret it. My mom doesn't make threats lightly. She's normally super professional and composed, so when she gets angry, everyone knows she means business. I blocked Sarah and left the group chat, so I don't know what happened afterwards, but Paul came over with my aunt and swore he knew nothing about it. He seemed genuinely shocked when he saw the messages. He kept saying this isn't like her. And she's been under a lot of stress lately, to be honest. I don't know if I believe him because he was still trying to defend Sarah again, which got him a verbal lashing from my aunt and mom. My aunt called him an idiot for dating someone so clearly unstable, and my mom said something like the huts must be good if you're willing to overlook this level of crazy. It was awkward, and Paul left pretty quickly. After that, that's it really. I'm going to update in a few months to let you guys know how everything went with my brother. I feel like I owe everyone that after so many people helped me take that step. I'm nervous but excited about finally meeting him. Honestly, words can't describe how happy I am about potentially meeting him. Literally the best birthday present I could have gotten. Thank you so much for the amazing advice and people sharing their own experiences. Update 2. Hi guys, as promised I'd give everyone an update, and this is the final one. I can't believe it's been almost 2 months since my last post, but time flies. I guess I want to thank everyone who reached out in comments and DMS. Your support meant a lot during a really difficult time. Short version, I turned 18 and had a great time. I've met my brother. Sarah tried to get in contact with me again in a really scary way, and I've spoken to my father and Tammy. I'll give details on all of it below. It's easier to break everything down. Sarah, a day after I made the last update, my mom booked a holiday for a week to get away, which was really random and sudden for her. She just came home from work and said, pack a bag, we're going to a beach resort for a week. I think after everything with Sarah and my dad, she thought we both needed a break. It was great. We sat by the pool, went for walks on the beach, ate too much food, and just relaxed. 3 days into our trip, my mom got a notification from our home security system that someone was at our door back home. She checked the app on her phone, and it was Sarah. At first, she was normal, asking my mom through the Ring camera to talk to me. Then she started explaining herself and her situation, which went between sad and angry. She was saying things like, I just want to help, and Uppy doesn't understand what she's doing to her family, but then would switch to she's being a selfish brat and someone needs to make her see reason. But suddenly she freaked out, started calling me names and threatening me while damaging our door and porch. She was screaming that I was ruining families and needed to grow up. She even broke the Ring camera by ripping it off the wall. It was extremely scary watching. This happened from our hotel room. My mom was on the phone with our neighbors, asking them to call the police. I don't blame Sarah's siblings for not wanting anything to do with her after seeing this side of her. Who knows what she did? To them, Paul had made it seem like it was just typical sibling rivalry, that got out of hand, but this was something else entirely. Sarah was arrested after. Our neighbors called the police. My mom is definitely pressing charges for the property damage and harassment. The cops found her sitting in her car down the street from our house when they arrived. I don't know much about her situation now, but I'm not going to lie, I've been looking over my shoulder a lot since. It's scary to think someone could be so obsessed with my family situation. For those wondering, yeah, her and my cousin broke up. He's, let's say, more shaken up than me and very apologetic about the whole thing. He keeps sending me texts apologizing for not seeing the signs, which is annoying, but whatever. I've told him several times that it's not his fault, and he couldn't have known she'd go that far, but he still feels guilty. My aunt says he's thinking about changing schools. They go to the same college because he's afraid of running into her on campus despite the say drama. My birthday went great. I had such a good time. Honestly, I've got the best mother and family in the world. They really made my 18th special. We had a small party at my aunt's house with just close family. My mom, both sets of grandparents, except dad's parents came at a different time than mom's to avoid drama. My aunt and uncle and a few cousins, not Paul, he was still dealing with the Sarah fallout. Got so many amazing presents and a new laptop from my grandparents for college. But my favorite gift was the sister knee my brother gave me. It's a simple silver chain with a little pendant that says sister on it. Obviously, Dad or Tammy got it for him to give to me. But the thought behind it was nice. I finally get to be his big sister, and that's what I've wanted for so long. He loves Miss Rachel, some YouTube lady for kids, I think, and the color green. Everything has to be green. His cup, his plate, his shoes. It's his whole personality right now. I found out he and the neighbor cat will stare each other down through the window, which is funny because IED used to do the same thing when I stayed at Dad's with her. Old cat, we've spent more time together since then, and I'm seeing him again. Tomorrow he started calling me a cute name he can't quite manage TP call me name yet and asks about me when I'm not there. Dad, my dad was there the first time I met my brother. I knew beforehand because obviously my brother is basically a toddler and needs supervision. I was told Dad would stay in the kitchen the whole time, which he mostly did. He wanted to give us space to bond. I caught him peeking at me and my brother a few times throughout the day, not in a creepy way, more like he was emotional seeing us together. When I was leaving, my dad followed me out to my car and just hugged me. He didn't say anything at first, just hugged me for like a full minute. Then he told me he missed me. I hugged him back and told him I missed him too. It was the first time I'd spoken directly to him in 2 years. After that, he apologized and took accountability for everything. He didn't make excuses or try to blame Tammy's condition. He said he failed me as a father and that he'll regret credit for the rest of his life. I started angry, crying, and just let everything out right there in the driveway. I told him how he and Tammy made me feel, what it did to my mental health, and that I love him, but I'll never forgive him completely. Some things you just can't take back. He asked me if he could try to make it up to me and be a part of my life again. I said we can try, but I'm making no promises on ever getting back the relationship we once had. I told him it would take time and that he shouldn't expect too much too soon. He said he understood and would respect my boundaries. He bought the car like he promised. It's a used Honda Civic. The brakes are a bit squeaky, but otherwise it runs great. He gave me the title with my name on it, so it's actually mine, no strings attached. He also gave me $1,000 for my birthday instead of the $500 we initially discussed, which was nice. I'm using it to buy textbooks for college and some dorm stuff. My mom says she's proud of me for being willing to try with Dad, but she also made it clear I can back out anytime if it gets too much. She's been really supportive and hasn't tried to influence me either way, which I appreciate. When I told my dad I got accepted to State University about 3 hours away, he seemed a bit sad that I'd be moving away, but said he was proud of me. He offered to help with the move-in and buying supplies. I said I'd think about it. Part of me wants to keep him at arm's length, but another part recognizes he's trying to make amends in whatever way he can. Tammy, you guys are going to be shocked, but I was the one who contacted her after meeting my brother and seeing how well adjusted and happy he is. I realized she must be doing something right as a mom. I got my mom to call her and basically say, Up is with me. She wants to speak to you. Tammy was obviously shocked, but agreed to talk. When she got on the phone, there was this awkward silence for like 10 seconds, where neither of us knew what to say. Finally, I broke the ice and told her that after everything she put me through and how much she hurt me, we'd never have a real relationship again. The damage was too deep and some things can't be fixed with apologies, but I'm willing, just for my brother's sake, not hers or mine, to be civil. I want us to be able to attend my brother's events without drama. Cammy started apologizing right away, saying she's not like that anymore, that she got help for her prenatal depression and anxiety. She's been on medication and in therapy since my brother was born. I said, I'm glad she's doing better, and I genuinely am. No child should have to live with a parent who's mentally unwell and untreated. We talked about the Sarah situation and she seemed genuinely concerned. She said Sarah had contacted her out of nowhere and she had a bad feeling about it right away. She apologized for how she treated me during her pregnancy and said there wasn't a day that goes by that she doesn't regret. We talked about my brother for a few minutes. The whole call was like 20 minutes. I've not spoken to her since, but that was only like 5 days ago. I'm not in a rush to have another conversation. Dad told me later that Tammy cried after our call, not because she was upset, but because she was relieved that we could at least be civil. She apparently was. Sure, I'd hate her forever, which I mean, I kind of do, but hate is exhausting to maintain. So that's it, really, my last update. I know what people are thinking. About my dad, I've not forgiven him, and he will have to work extremely hard to get back any semblance of the relationship we lost, but I feel better that he's back in my life in some capacity, and I do believe both of them regret what happened, but make no mistake. If I get any new or think my brother isn't being treated well, I will make their lives hell. I've told my dad that directly, and he understands trust is earned, not given. And they've got a long way to go before I trust either of them. Again, thanks so much, Reddit, for the amazing advice and support. I'm praying I'll never have to make a post on here. Again, LOL, if I do, it'll probably be about crazy roommate drama or something. Normal like that, not family trauma. Fingers crossed, edit. Thanks for all the kind words to the people asking if I'm in therapy. Yes, I started about a year ago and it's been really helpful. And to the person who asked if I'm taking the car and money because I'm greedy, no, I'm taking it because college is expensive and I need transportation. He offered it because he should be helping with my education and basic needs as my parent. I'm not asking for a brand new BMW and a trip to Europe, edit 2 for those asking. For proof that Sarah broke our door, why would I make that up? And no, I'm not posting pictures of my house on Reddit. Use your imagination. Edit 3, stop messaging me asking for my social media. I'm not going to dox myself to prove anything to strangers on the internet. And to the person who said should, forgive and forget. You try being treated like a disease in your own home for months and see how quickly you forget it. Some of y'all have never experienced family trauma and it shows